Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Chapalang Film Podcast. I'm your host, Sepeng. We also have co-host and film director Jonathan Chu. Our guest today is Rajagopal. He's a film director, most famous for A Yellow Bird, his debut feature that premiered at Cannes in 2016, as well as numerous short films such as The Flame, that was part of the Seven Letters anthology, and 3 short films that won the Special Jury Prize consecutively at SJFF for 3 years called I Can't Sleep Tonight in 1995, The Glare 1996, and Absence in 1997. Welcome to the pod, Raja.
Hello. Hi.
Hi. Hey Raja, how's everything? How's everything going for you?
I'm good. Yeah.
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 Cool. What have you been working on lately? Maybe just before we.
Actually, I'm doing a documentary shoot. I mean, last year, the beginning of the year, I've not done any drama or films, but I'm working on documentaries, traveling a little bit here and there. Just came back actually from the Philippines.
What do documentaries mean to you as when compared to like fictional films?
I think, it is very much something that you observe more than you plan and shoot and, you craft. A lot of it is, it unfolds in front of you. I mean, of course, there's planning. I mean, you need to do a lot more research on the profiles. I mean, like film, the approach is research, on the material that you want to talk about or you want to film. But the people in front of you are not actors. They're real people. So the approach is different.
Right.
In a documentary. The way you approach them, the way you film stories, for documentaries. I think, you have to take a seat back, like in film and all that, the way when you work with actors, you're very involved and you try to hone them and, to sort of like, there's a lot more conversation in that way. Whereas here, it's more the interview approach or actualities approach, where you allow the things to just unfold, you film it, and then you edit it.
Right.
So that's, a difference. I mean, you can do reality, films that are very realistic and you just let it all happen. I think, you can go take that approach with film as well, where it becomes more like a documentary than actually a fictional film,
Right. Yeah.
So, but I think I started out with, doing short films and eventually a feature film, dramas, before I ventured into documentary filmmaking. I mean, for me, documentaries are, something that I'm still learning, I'm still working on, because every time it's a new experience. And what it has opened my eyes a lot more. I think it helped me make my films, actually, because you see a lot of real life.
Yep.
You experience a lot of real situation, real people, and things that maybe, you have not encountered in your life, but then you realize that a lot of people have different experiences or sometimes shared experiences, either way. And it allows me to, meet characters, which can be fodder for my film, for stories that I want to write about in fictional films. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. You've had a long, like many years of experience in both theater and film.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, when you were young, have you always wanted to do film?
No, not at all. Actually, it was a very I started doing film because I was frustrated. I was completely frustrated because as an actor, I felt that I did a lot of school plays, college and all that. So when I came out, it was a fluke thing. They were looking, William Teo was looking for an actor for his play, play Medea, which was really a heavy play, a Greek tragedy. And, it was supposed to be the first outdoor play in Singapore at Fort Canning. And he wanted a lead, and I had no experience, but he casted me. And I was struggling with it, but I managed to get through. And I had to work with a lot of things, like things I didn't know about, like the mask, and a certain style, a form of acting, because he's a visionary. William is a visionary in the way he produces his plays. It's really grand affairs. And I was thrown into the lion's den almost. So I grappled with it a lot, but then eventually I kind of enjoyed it, the process, and I think I met a lot of, like, the actors that you are very, like veterans in today's Singapore's theatre stage, right? They were all there at the time, working with William and all that, and so I learned a lot. And this whole, I was inspired, and I was thinking, oh, I can do this. I can actually act, right? So I threw myself into it. I had a full-time job, but we used to do theater was very different at that time. It's not full-time, or you didn't have like a bunch, like schools or theater schools to go to and graduate and come out and be full-time actors. It was very different. It was like, we had to work, and we go for rehearsals at night, and we work throughout, for months, like 3 months before the play is actually staged. So, there was a lot of, I enjoyed it. It was a struggle, but, because I was working, and in the morning I had to go to work, and then, and then think about my part. But I was really blessed, because in terms of my acting in theater, I worked with the very best of theater makers, theater practitioners like Pao Koon, William, Ong Keng Sen. I did a lot of work with TheatreWorks. And then, in TheatreWorks itself, because, they expanded to Southeast Asia, I had the opportunity to work with Arifin Noor and Nonon Padilla, Arifin from Indonesia, Nonon Padilla from Philippines, so, and Christian Jit from Malaysia. So I was really, really excited. It was, I think, the best time in my life, because I was growing, I was young, I was energetic, I was craving for, to be there, in the midst of all this, and I just went into it, gave myself into it. But over the years, right, I did it for about 10 years, and I think things changed, like from 87 to about 97, and things were changing, because then people were giving up their jobs. Some of the actors I know, like, they gave up their jobs to be full-time actors, and rehearsals started to be in the daytime. And then I couldn't do it because I had to work. And, so I withdrew from it. And also because, you need parts to be written, and then being a bit of on the minority side. I mean, it's not a gripe or anything, really, because I think that experience I had in theater is amazing and wonderful, and I would never regret it. But again, as a personal, from a personal perspective, it was, you want to be there doing the lead parts, and when I didn't get that, and also when time was, constrained, right, I withdrew slowly. But that's how I turned into films, because I had these stories, right? Because in theater, you tell a lot of stories. You're narrating as an actor. You are actually telling stories, right? And you devise plays, and you create your new works. You create words, text. So all this training is what gave me ideas that I wanted to tell stories. So how do I do that? And so it was the 90s, right? It was like the early 90s, and SGIFF had just started, and they had the platform for short film they had a short film competition, and Eric Koo was like really hot at that time with his films, right? With all his short films, and everyone was talking about it. And I was thinking, I could do something like that. So that's how I ventured into doing my very first short film in Little India. So that's how it triggered me.
And when you were embarking on that first short film, like how do you get your crew and your equipment and everything?
Okay, I'm not schooled in film, right? I mean, I was a late bloomer, right? I started when I was 30. I was already 30 years old when everybody else, at that time were in their 20s and all that. But I was in my 30s, not knowing anything about film, cameras, nothing. But I had stories to tell. So I got a friend from MediaCorp to come over, and we got some relatives and non-actors. Even one of them was a worker who was, was homeless in Little India, and who was in my first film. So I didn't have any professional actors. I didn't have money. It was, I think, done for a few $100s, like buying them food and things like that.
Yeah.
Everything else, camera, was a friend who brought the cameraman from MediaCorp, and we did it together in one whole day, and I didn't even have one of the actors. Halfway through, my friend was going back from work, and we just called him, Peter King, and we knew him from, he was an RJ, and we called him in, and he came to act as in the film. So that's how it was. That's how raw it was,
Right.
But I was very fortunate. It won at the festival. So
Yeah.
that set me up for everything else,
Right. Before we go further down your film path, I'm really, really curious about your theater days as an actor. I would really love to know, because you worked with Ong Keng Sen, whom I'm a big fan of. Like, can you talk about some of the experiences you had working with Keng Sen?
I think I owe it to him. I owe a lot to Keng Sen, because he taught me it's not just about the acting or the opportunity to work in a play, but the whole craft itself, what it entails, the discipline that comes with it, the way he approaches text, the way he approaches actors, the way he pushes them, to get the right kind of moments that you need for the character to excel, So I think those kind of things, I mean, a lot of times we did ensemble work, huge outdoor, like Broken Birds and Longing. They were huge plays, and Theatre on the Hill and things like that. But I also did a lot of supporting characters with him, like Six of the Best, which is about the caning of Michael Fay. I did Exiles with, a play about Simon Tay's play. So all these things, to find I know he used to lock me up in a room, to get that, to go into the depths of the darkness, into the heart of darkness, of the character, to feel fear. And I remember he was very, very strict with us, like he would make us come and, take turns to perform. And when we didn't get it right, he asked us to leave the room, He says, no, it's not working, leave, So it pushed you, to push yourself, He was very tough, but I think in the long run, on hindsight, I think that's where I learned about working with actors in films, giving them, looking at their characters, helping them to find their characters. All that came from theater and came mainly from Keng Sen. I mean, I must also credit Pao Koon, because I did a 6 months workshop with Pao Koon and acted in one of his plays. I mean, he took a risk. I could speak Mandarin, but he even gave me a character, in his Chinese play, Lao Chiu.
Yeah.
So, and, it was also like Pao Koon who taught us about language, using your mother tongue. Which he was very big into, it was one of the bigger themes in his plays. So Keng Sen and Pao Koon had, like that. And William was, all about, the grandeur and the craft of like working with masks and all. But Keng Sen was an actor's director. He really pushed you to really understand what you're doing. And it's not about thinking too much or intellectualizing, I mean, he's really brilliant. He's smart, and, he's also an academic and all that. But it was always about doing, and, that was something that we practiced a lot in theater, to just do it and find out, to explore. Yeah. I mean, I can go on about all this, you can give me 2 hours and I can tell you a lot of things. I mean, it was sometimes at that age, when you're young and sensitive, you take it a bit hard on yourself. You cry sometimes because you think it's so tough. But I think, I can give you an example. Like, I had to get onto the bed without making a noise. And every time it creaked, he'll send me off. And say, come back and do it without making a noise. Because he said it'll irritate the audience. And there were times, like like he never let it get to your head as well. Because I remember when he did Lao Chio in English, I mean, in Pao Koon's play in English, I played a very comedic character in that play in his version, and there was always applause because I was speaking different Chinese dialects. There was a scene, but I remember he came to them just because he said, just because you get an applause doesn't mean that you're the best or you've done it all, because, and he was just grounding you, like, don't let it get to your head. Don't think, you have it all, you got it all just because people applaud. You have to work, continue working. I mean, and at that time you think, oh, it's tough. You're so tough on me. But, you learn, you realize. And I think a lot of times it has helped me understand actors. It has helped me work with actors. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That workshop that you mentioned that you did with Pao Koon,
Yeah.
what was it about? And
it was about everything. Actually, I had to learn dance, meditation. We had to learn how to improvise. It was like 6 months, right? So we had puppeteering. Like to do puppeteers. Buntek was there at the same time. Buntek was the theater director, right? He was also part of it. He was a young boy then, making puppets and things like that. So it was during that time that we were learning, and he had Lei Kwan as well, his wife, were teaching us dance movements and things like that. So it was about very holistic. It was not just about acting. It's about how you approach theater in performance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Raja, this is really great. Will you consider making a film, like a period film about this period of your life, about all these stories and
No, but
everything?
you see, that the thing is, like, I feel very blessed.
Yeah.
At that time, like, I am, a lot of them, like, the plays that I did, I blossomed, like from, from a struggling actor, not knowing anything about acting, except for from your school plays, an asset that I had, they said, was my voice, and of course in my youth I could move. We did a lot of physical theater. That was another thing. In theater we did a lot of physical theater. It was strenuous. And I could do it. It was easy. You push yourself and you stand on your head and do all sorts of things.
Right.
But I think but working with them, each one of us, as I grew and as I worked with them, I blossomed. I improved my craft, and I think I gained a lot of personal confidence in myself. I remember doing Ozone, and Keng Sen said to me, hey, you've come a long way, because it was all about timing and, being sharp, so those were the things that I don't know, whether I would do something like that but they're all memories, and it has stayed. It's embedded here.
Yeah.
are there like rehearsal techniques or different ways of directing actors that you learned from Kingston that you still use today?
Actually, I used to be very strict. I think I've changed. I've changed my approach, because I think the generation of, like now, people tend to be a bit more sensitive. So my approach is different. And maybe I've aged as well. Before my blood was always boiling, like really, ready to go and, get it done and, all that. But now I think my approach is very different. I think I have to understand the younger that generation, I think, could handle it. They understood. But here, now if you don't come from theater, a lot of them who came into film at that time were theater actors and all that. Right now, you get a lot of actors who, maybe they don't have that experience, or they want to have that experience, but, they're not ready for it yet or something. So my approach is very different, and also film is actually very different from theater.
Yeah.
My approach I've never directed a theater play until like very recently.
Right.
Like I did Missing for Keng Hua produced it, and I did it. She got all film directors, film and TV directors to direct plays, and I just did that in a couple of years ago. And that was my first directorial theater, directing a theater play. But before that, my approach to film, right? Actors in film, it's different, and the way you direct for film, it's a different approach because it has to be a bit more subtle. It cannot be so big.
Right,
It
right,
cannot
right.
be so theatrical, So, because the camera is up close,
Yeah,
so it captures a lot more. So I have to change, like use a lot of the eye
yeah,
contact and expressions to do it. You
yep,
don't
yep,
play too big. So
yeah,
that's something that you kind of you learn and you unlearn. So
yeah,
I think the approach is different. But I think what theater helps is to find that emotion,
yep,
like to dig deeper into yourself. Techniques that you can use in theater to help actors to go into their to understand the role or character better, and then they can use that to play the role in a more subtle way. But they actually fill themselves up with that emotion first,
mm,
so it's
mm,
there, ripe and ready.
mm.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know because after you made your first short film, you made a few other short films. Was that like a full gear into filmmaking for you, or were you
No,
like getting into the scene right then?
no,
Or
because you see, it builds your confidence, right? After you
mm,
win the first time.
mm,
And it was a lot of things. For me, it was a big sign because I was a big fan of Palakrishnan, who inspired me because my mom, it's because my mother tongue is Malayalam, and he's a Malayalam filmmaker from Kerala who started the parallel cinema in the 1970s, which, moved away from theatrical kind of films into studio films, into very realistic films.
mm,
He moved away from the studios and he started a new wave in cinema in Kerala. And my mom used to recommend his films, and I watched it, and I was thrilled, by that film, The Rat Trap. And so when I got the award, he gave me the award. He was the jury. He was one of the jury, and he gave me my first award. And
mm,
I was really so excited. I remember it was at the Western, and I couldn't believe it. Like, my God, like how did this happen, right? So that really encouraged me to do my next. And you win a cash prize, right?
mm.
So from $300 now you have $5,000. It's a
Yeah.
big difference, right?
Mm,
Yeah. And then so you want to move on, and you want to, and I happened to win two times, and win and that same money, and I used it. But my third film, Absence, I did it on film, 16 mm. So I spent a lot more and burnt my pocket
mm,
because I got ambitious. But I needed to grow. You want to build, right, on
mm,
your, on your work, right?
mm.
So, and explore, more on film. So I
Yep.
think that was my inspiration. That I was encouraged by the awards to
Mm.
do more. Yeah.
How were you honing your craft at that point of time? Because uh, was it through reading, watching films, or like
I think, yeah. I mean, because I didn't, there was no IMDA, there was no funding, there's no SFC, there was,
yeah, yeah,
that period, right? So,
yeah,
but a lot of it was watching films and reading.
mm,
Yes,
mm, mm,
very much so, literature, and like watching films, because even from young, when I was a teenager, I used to save my pocket money and go and watch films on Sunday. The Jade Classics, Picture House. They had Premier Cinema. I don't know whether it was where Orchard Towers is now. Where they used to show on Sunday the classics, or films that were not really like art house films.
mm.
So Midnight Cowboy.
Ooh, yeah,
Movies like that were winning Oscars, and
yeah,
or were quite like classics.
yeah.
So I
What what
was already very attuned to that.
what were some other formative films that really stayed with you and really influenced you a lot?
I think Alan J. Midnight. What was it? Huh?
Alan J. Pakula.
Yeah, he had this. What was it called? Midnight.
All the President's Men.
No, all that I've seen. All the President's Men.
Right.
Julia.
Yeah.
Alan J. Pakula. He had that film where the drug addict, the drug trafficking thing. It's off my mind. Something Midnight. Brad Davis. Brad Davis. Midnight Express.
Midnight Express. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Midnight Express. So like films like that, and I used to watch things. I used to go to, there was RELC, and they
Yes.
used to show films there. So like the old classics like Bicycle Thief. Some of the older films that Trudeau was. I'm aging. Wait. Truffaut.
Truffaut.
Yeah. Like 400 blows.
Yeah.
Blow up. There was Michael Angelino.
Antonio Lee.
Michael Angelino. Yeah.
Yeah.
So those kind of films, were things that I was growing up with.
Yeah.
And Fellini as well. Yeah. So this was all very it was an exciting time because it was like a day out on my own, on a Sunday.
Yeah.
And I had this orange container where I used to save the money to go to the movies. Yeah.
Nice.
I read in an interview, you met Palakrishnan, and apparently he offered to teach you how to make films.
No, but actually, I said, "Can I follow you to work with you?" So he laughed and he said, "Sure, but you have to give me 5 years of your life, to do this, because that's how that's how long I take to make one film. 5 years, So of course that 5 years was a big deal for me. What's my, it was like a bit of a shock for me, right? Here I was making a short film in a day, right? So for me to work 5 years, what's my family going to say? Of course, there were a lot of restrictions. So I said,
but looking back now, do you regret not taking him up on the offer?
Definitely, because I think I would have learned a lot, right? Like how I've learned from the doyens of theater, I would have learned a lot from him. I think it's that's what I think I wanted to do all my life, to not have a job, a full-time job, just immerse in it, immerse in filmmaking, just be this filmmaker that just go out and just live and breathe films, just lose myself somewhere, and make my films on, because I always believe that I could make films without anything, I don't need a set, I don't need actors, I don't need props, I just give me, I just need a camera and and I could do this, because as long as I have a good story to tell, I can make I can tell the story, so I had that kind of thinking at that time, right, that I could do it, because that's how I was trained to do it. That I was producing everything myself, working with non-actors, just telling my stories, and I thought I could continue doing it for that way. But times change, that's why I struggled that 10 years, right? I struggled because I couldn't do anything. I didn't know what to do. I was very lost. And this whole thing about making a feature film was too big an idea. It was because I burnt my pockets with that last film, and then but what was, and why I also stopped was because King Sen offered me to work with him on Workhorse Afloat, which was an arts festival project. And he said, can you do a film to support the theater play? So it was like multimedia at that time, collaboration. So I made Brother for his play, about foreign workers, because Workhorse Afloat was about the coolies that came, our past and migrant workers and all that. So I worked about a relationship between a Singaporean and a migrant worker. And, that was for me a big deal because I appeared on stage with King Sen because he presented it. And I was also presenting my story. And then there was my film with his play. And I told myself, wow, I've achieved everything in life,
Right.
This is the ultimate, right? The person who has groomed you is given you a chance to, work with him, to collaborate with him. What more can you ask for? And then I was thinking, okay, that's it, right? And another thing that, so I was thinking like, I didn't know how to move. So I went back to work and I didn't do anything until there were small opportunities like to tell telefilms, to make a telefilm here and there. But I was always thinking like, I was very experimental at that time, wanting to do things which is quirky and didn't have to explain everything. So I was moving away from narrative storytelling, like I didn't need, a lot of it was very visual, for me. At that time.
Speaking of that, I remember I watched Lucky Seven.
Yeah.
The 7 directors make it, and I remember your installment, your chapter inside, and it included all these things you were saying, how experimental and visual. So I think your segment was shot at the Ten Dune, right?
Yeah, it was in Japanese. It's no more. So sad. Everyone believed that I went overseas to do it. Brian shot it for me. It was just Brian Gautam Tan.
Yep.
No, actually, everyone was in it. Jun Fong was in it. Ting Li was in it. Sanko, Chu, a lot of people, Tanya. So, but what was very amazing was because they asked me to do it after a long gap.
Yeah.
And, I was very nervous because I was already in my 40s. And they were this bunch of young, enthusiastic, young 20-something filmmakers. And I thought, oh my God, they are not going to be conventional, right? So I made mine very unconventional, because you don't know each other's story, it was like Exquisite Cop, where you only get the last page, right? And so that's how it was. And so that's why I thought I was, being very experimental, and I pushed it. I really pushed it.
Yeah.
But it was for me, it was good. Yeah, it was good for me because I realized I could do it,
It was such a crazy film because like you all were using one actor, right? Sunny Pang. And then he goes through your film, and then in Chu's chapter, which is also completely batshit crazy also.
Yeah, I acted in it as well, in Chu's one. Because we had to contribute, each one of us. Because there was no money, right? So you had to contribute your services. Yeah. So like Jun Fong was art in another film, and Sanko was sound in mine, and so Brian shot mine while he also had a film. But Sunny didn't want to do my film.
Oh, how come?
He went to Sanko and said, "No, it's too much. Raja's too much." He didn't want to do it. Then they convinced him. He said, "It's like, hey, you'll be a better actor." If you do it.
That's interesting because I saw it. I was like, wow, he really gave it all, man. Yeah, so I didn't know about this thing. Yeah.
I mean, it was quite tough for him, but he's a nice chap, and we became. I mean, after that we became friends.
Nice.
Yeah, but initially he had a lot of reservations about doing it. Yeah.
Right. And after Lucky Seven, I remember I actually watched it in person. You made another short film, Timeless, in 2010.
Yes. You see, Timeless was because the National Museum of Singapore did a retrospective of all my short films. So before that, I did a film called New World, which was about my experience in cinema, going to state cinema. I used to watch a lot of Indian films in state cinema when I was young as well. And they wanted a film about a place that I had an affinity to. It was a thing from digital. It was called Digital Homeland. It was from the museum, and they asked me to make a film, and so I did it on cinema. I went to a Shaw cinema. It's about a young boy going to the cinemas and all that. And so then after that, they said they did a retrospective. That time they had Cinematech. Yeah, I don't know whether you remember. Shortcuts and all that, right? So that year was like, I was 45 years old in 2010, right? And it was, I thought, my retirement, because they gave me a retrospective. And then they gave me an honorary award for short filmmaking.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize that my life was going to change after that.
Yeah.
It was just because of Fran Borgia. I mean, I met him around that time doing King Lear project.
Yeah.
Because I came back to acting also around that time, after 10 years.
Yeah.
He offered me, he and Zidane offered me King Lear to act and go to the Arts Fest in Belgium. So I was coming back to acting. And then, I met Fran, and Fran said, I should do So Timeless came out of it was a commission for my retrospective. Because they were doing a retrospective, they commissioned a new film. So I did Timeless, which was, again, exploring history and art, because the museum, right? History and art. So that's when that was my first film that Fran produced, that short film. And that's how, that's now a very, good relationship. Like how Keng Sen and all the others have mentored me. Now I found a friend and a producer, a well-wisher, and I mean, I owe a lot to Fran.
Yep.
If not, I don't think you will be talking to me, seriously.
Right. Yeah.
Because if he didn't push me to make a Yellow Bird, he didn't give up. I gave up. I said no, I won't do it. I remember Chris Yeo and him came to convince me in Chinatown. They had like a dinner, and they said, "Oh, you have to write something. You have stories to tell. Please do something." And I said no. I cried. I said, "No, don't. I don't have the confidence. I can't do this. Please leave me alone." But he didn't give up. Next year he forced me to submit. And, I realized that, because I thought I didn't have it, like it was tough, right? Making a film is like, it's not easy. I think, Jonathan, you know this, right?
Yeah.
It's so personal, and, it's not like doing anything else, making, and somehow a feature film, right? Even till today, I get very nervous. Any shoot, right? Any shoot, commercial, documentaries, TV, whatever. That first day, my stomach churns. I get that heavy feeling in my heart, like I don't know anything. I'm zero. I'm not going to make it. That kind of, you think that, I should have all the confidence in the world, but after that first day, that first shot, then it's totally. Then I get into the whole cycle of things, and it just pushes me to go. That spark. I need that spark every time.
Yeah.
So I think Fran, I mean, then I did Yellow Bird, it went to Cannes. Yeah. Then things happened, yeah.
Which year was it, that dinner with Chris and Fran?
2011.
2011.
Yeah, 2011. Yeah, because 2012 I started writing with Jeremy, and then end of 2012 we submitted and we got the grant.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, and when was the film being shot actually? Yellow Bird?
Most of it was like in Maud Street near Jalan Besar.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
right.
and then the houses were there, the one-room flat. There was a lot of shots in Little India. There was the forest in Tampines, with the water, the quarry. I mean, Desker Road, the bar, the coffee shops in Desker Road. Yeah.
What was like the intellectual genesis of A Yellow Bird? It feels like, because as you mentioned earlier, there's very little like Indian filmmakers in Singapore and Indian films in general. It feels like A Yellow Bird is a statement about the condition of a Singaporean Indian. Did you have this at the back of your mind when you were conceptualizing A Yellow Bird?
No, I mean, initially when I started making my films, right, I was just take my first film, okay? I Can't Sleep Tonight. Why I wanted to make it was because I was exposed to, foreign workers, because I was working in Little India. Okay, so I'm so when I was there and I realized that some of them didn't have homes, they were cheated by their agents. They were or that there were I met what do you call it sex workers who were forced into it because they were again cheated to come here for work as a nurse or something, and yet they were made to do sex work. And there was a lot of things were happening in around. So I wanted to use that to tell my story, because not because it was very topical or anything, but I felt for them because of my
Yeah.
own interactions with them. I
Yeah.
used to moonlight in a motel in Little India at that time, Virasamy Road. And so it was very personal approach. In fact, a lot of my films, I approach it from a very personal standpoint. So I didn't think like, oh, I'm going to create a voice or, for the Indian community, I need to be, but it's just that I'm familiar with the Indian, with the culture, right? I mean, I'm familiar with it, the language, the way they think or the way they are. And so I started using a lot of telling those stories, their stories. So it eventually evolved that way because it was what I was comfortable with. But it was not intentional, like, okay, I'm going to, or let's talk about the marginalized, or it just happened that they were interesting stories and I think they were not told. They were not brought to the front, like there were people who were suffering in, the economic growth, the country was flourishing, but there were people left behind and lost and all that. So a Yellowbird was an extension of what I was feeling. And a Yellowbird was not like, because I felt that, as a minority, I'm left behind, I have no opportunities. I can't say that, I think you create your own. I think, I don't have that kind of anger. I mean, like, or whether it was about racism. I mean, Yellowbird has that, that tone to it, right? But I was never a victim of it, Of course, in a very immature way, there were some friends who made fun of me about the oil on my hair, or, little things like I'll call you Apune or whatever, right? But it didn't scar me, or it didn't make me feel, in fact, I felt I was not Indian, because I took Mandarin in school. I had a lot of Chinese friends, and I didn't want to be Indian. It was my problem, It was not anybody else's problem. It was just like I thought it was not cool to be Indian. Until that was my awakening. Because when I went to work in Little India, I felt so, then I took a trip. I took a trip to India. I backpacked in India during that time, from the south to Nepal, just to understand. Went back to Kerala, to where my grandfather came from, to find my roots and to see what it was like. So it was my awakening to my whole culture and community and race, or So then it became so. A Yellowbird came out of a lot of things, like an observation of a man, who used to be who used to wait along Lavender Street, where it was, there was a production house. So I used to go for lunch, and he was sitting there always waiting to be employed, to be picked up by this funeral lorry, the services, to be a band boy. That's how the guy became the band boy in the funeral procession, right? In a Chinese, mainly a Chinese, but they hire you for $10 and all. So I used to see him, and I found that so interesting, and I tried to talk. I had a conversation, but he was very simple in the way he was thinking. He had no family. He was sleeping outside on the, along wherever he could find, bathing in swimming pools, So that's how, so I wanted to, I was just thinking that there are people who live life that way, and things like that. So that's why I made Siva do that, to prep for the role as well.
Right.
But some of it were personal, like not my mom didn't speak to me for 2 years for personal reasons, and that was put in the film. And then the story about the women who were found in the forest in Sembawang, was a newspaper article at that time. They were So I and the film, the way Yellowbird was written, it had 10 drafts. It moved from, it had a lot of changes because of budgets. Because I initially wrote something very big, and a building and like 20 million people, and and every time Fran knocked it down, he said, no, this is not going to happen. So let's be realistic. Until I said, okay, I'm going to put it in a forest. It's going to be outdoors, no locations, but it worked for the film. It worked for me. It worked for the story. And sometimes you need to go through, that kind of baptism of fire, to mold it into something that you really you relate to,
Yeah.
How would you describe a yellow bird today to someone who hasn't seen it?
Actually, I had this conversation with Jeremy. Whether Yellow Bird is still relevant today as a film or as a character, I mean, a lot of it is gone. Right? The locations like Mott Street, the one-room flats are gone. I think you see less and less of that homelessness. I think people are being made to work. They're able to work, or there's a kind of like an avenue to find employment. But I think but there are still people left behind. I think there are less and less people, but maybe some of them have fallen, into the cracks, or within the cracks, and you don't know, you don't see them, but I think they still exist. Yeah, so I think it is partly relevant, but partly I think the way I would tell that story now, I may not even use so much plot. For example, I think we were talking about Jeremy and I were talking about inside the yellow cocoon, the new film, the Vietnamese film, and I really enjoyed it. I really liked it, and the existentialism in it, and the way the characters being journeys right through looking for his brother. Here he's looking for his wife and child, and here he's looking for his brother, and then it moves between reality, and then it also goes into flashback, and then it sort of switches, time periods and time frames, and I thought that was something that was a newer. It could be a newer approach to, say, telling a story like Yellow Bird.
Okay.
Speaking of existentialism, I read you were inspired by Albert Camus' The Stranger.
Yeah, actually, way before.
Which is one of my favorite books, actually.
Yeah, you see, Albert Camus. I read The Stranger a long time ago because what happened was, Crime and Punishment. Stranger was inspired by Crime and Punishment, which was Dostoevsky's book, short story, and then there was also influence from Notes from the Underground. And I was thinking, wow, I didn't see it, but then I was relating to all this material, right? And as I was working on the script, I was thinking about these things that I've read some time back, and like certain things stuck into me about how he in Stranger, when the mom dies, he sits down over the body and smokes, and the whole idea of morality, that was actually a bigger theme about what is right and wrong, so the ending of Yellow Bird, right, for example, a lot of people had a lot of issues with, so what happened, like the whole thing for him, he was doing something right, but that he has done something wrong legally and he's committing a crime again, right? So that was that exploration of what's right and wrong, who's the judge of it, so those were the themes of Stranger that I kind of was exploring in A Yellow Bird as well, as a philosophy, as a thought process, so so that was something that I was very interested in to explore.
Yeah, you mentioned Notes from Underground.
Yeah.
And I'm also curious if you're also exploring the ideas of like alienation and displacement in Singapore with that film.
Yeah. I mean, like, okay, so alienation and displacement is my own personal alienation. Like, I'm a very antisocial person. I like to keep to myself. I find I'm very nervous. I put up a front. You know what I mean? Like you put me in a crowd, I try, but actually I just want to be home, or be in a quiet place. I like very small gathering. It's my own personal alienation, where I kind of like, which is projected in my films.
Yeah.
It is not about the outsiders, who are alienating me. I don't think that. I think it is my own myself, and that's why sometimes it comes across in my films. Characters that are alienated and are reclusive and displaced. Yeah, because many times in my life I felt very displaced. Not knowing what I wanted, not knowing what to do with my life, not knowing. I mean, because like as I told you earlier, right? I was very displaced because I didn't know whether to continue, not to continue, because it was not like I could pick up the camera and shoot. I didn't have that knowledge. You see, that's something technically. I came from that era, right? And sometimes technology scares me. That alienates me in that way, or So it's that kind of feeling, but I've overcome it because I realized filmmaking is not about technology. You have to just know what it's about, what it can do for you, but you don't have to go and know all the nitty-gritty things. That's why you have a DOP, right? So my working relationship with DOPs are very, very, I need to be very comfortable. And I've worked with some of the nicest, most sensitive people. And then I've only got, I forge a relationship. It's like a huge love affair. It's like with actors, I have to fall in love with them. I have to fall in love with my DOP. And then sometimes, things like in any love affair, it sometimes turns a bit of sour. Sometimes there's disagreement, but it's okay. I've always remained friends with them, no matter what has happened, because I think that is part of the process. Because, you can't be agreeing on everything, Yeah, but I think I have a lot of respect for actors and like crew or technical people like editors and directors of photography and script writers, and because it's film, you can't do it on your own. You can't.
Yeah. Can you also talk about the thought process behind the aesthetic of A Yellow Bird? It's a very intense, grim film. I'm sure you've heard this before. I think a lot of it is because the shots were filmed in very extended long takes. There's a lot of like shadows. Almost like a noir film.
Yeah, like you see, the extended long takes and all that is my influence as well. And also because I wanted to make it as real as possible and not let the camera interfere all the time. And cut in, or I wanted things to unfold. It was you're watching someone's life play out, right? So that was intentional. But that in terms of what it was, the darkness, that the shadows and the dark and light kind of thing, that was also intentional. It's something that I spoke to Michael about. Because, and Michael also picked up on it, because it's about this man who's gone through, if you'll see a lot of bars. He's always looking through something, or there's always these lines, even in the trees in the forest, created these bars, So it was all something that was intentional, or subconsciously it'll happen to me, and subconsciously you frame it that way, because that's the story you're telling, you see. So it's not about, their lives were in these dingy one-room flats with no light coming through, and the foreign workers in the house, right? The Chinese foreign workers that the mother leases out the room to, rents the room to, were real foreign workers. I just let them be, and they just did it. I didn't choreograph the fights, or I didn't choreograph them like they're talking what they were saying, how they should be. Like I let them be. I just told them what it was, and they should walk out at a certain time, for the shot and all that. But a lot of it was very organic. I let it breathe, and so I kept them, the light and darkness thing, and shooting a lot of it in natural light. There was once Michael was obsessed with a cherry picker, to get the moonlight, which I didn't want. But suddenly he became a DOP. Like, oh, wanted the thing. But eventually he realized that you don't need it. We could use the light from the forest, the oil flames, right? Yeah, so we could use that and things like that. And of course, I've collaborated with James Page as well. He also made Yellowbird what it is. We are talking about all the light and darkness and the spaces that we film. So credit goes to him as well.
Right.
I mean, my collaboration with him, we have done quite a few projects together. And I've since theatre actually. He was in the King Lear project. That's how I met him. And through Fran, of course, he's a constant collaborator with Fran Borgia. So they actually brought all these things to light.
Yeah, maybe you can talk about the production design of A Yellowbird and what James contributed.
I mean, you see, with James, right? He's relentless. Like, if you tell him something, you want something, he will go and look for it, and he will make sure you have it. If you don't have it, he'll give you another option. Like I told him, I want a place where there is forest and water, because it was a theme, about something that's concrete and hard and a space, and water is, it's got no definition, right? So, it was one of those things that, so he went all out to find this place. And at that time, this place was not popular. Now it's Instagram friendly, and now it's all blocked up, I think. But nothing to do with Yellowbird. But, the thing is, he manages to go out and realize your dreams for you, realize your locations for you. So a lot of it, like the way the house that we lived in, the kitchen, that's again the actor also, I worked with Seema Bishwas, who came from India, and she's a veteran actress. And, she contributed, she said, let me place things in my kitchen because this is my space. I want to be familiar with it. And she moved things around with James because she saw it in a different way. Because she was living there, she slept on the sofa, she got used to the space, she stitched her clothes, she wore her slippers for a few days before the shoot. She didn't want any luxury because she said, in this film, she's a poor, she came from a lower income family, so she walked to the set. She downgraded herself into a smaller room in the hotel. She didn't want the car that we gave her to bring her. She walked. She realized it was quite near, and, so you learn from different people, how they approach cinema, how they approach characters, and they come with a certain experience themselves, right?
How was it working with the Chinese actress Huang Lu?
Yeah, like the water scene, for example. She had just given birth,
Yeah.
And the Chinese, traditionally, not just Chinese, but they don't, once your confinement period, you're not supposed to go and do that kind of thing. But she went into the water. She did it because she knew that there's no other way, and I needed the scene. And, she said her mother said, don't do it, but she did it, So, and, there was a moment like, in a scene where we did it one night, where she's speaking in Chinese, right? She's crying her lungs out about her daughter, and Siva's there, and he doesn't understand a word she's saying, but they're relating to each other. She actually came up to me and she says, can I do it one more time the next day? And I said, no, it was fine. But I realized there's a constraint for time because I can't go over time, So then the next day we found some time, and, she did it again. And she said, I can definitely do this. So that's the kind of dedication they had, So, we did it again. And, she felt. So that's really nice, to have actors like that. Yeah.
Yes, speaking of actors, could you share with us your process of working with actors? Maybe you could start with the auditioning process. How do you audition?
You know what I do for auditioning? What I like to do is I always make them sing and dance, even if they can't sing and dance.
Right.
Because for me, right, if you can make a fool out of yourself in front of people and not give two hoots about it,
wow,
it helps.
Wow, hearing
to
that,
be in
Raja,
front of
I think I should audition for you. Those are two things I have no qualms doing in a silly way whatsoever.
So I always make them do it, Some of
Yeah,
them can belt it out, some shy, cannot dance, cannot
yeah,
sing. But I
yeah,
always say, okay, sing and dance. And they say, no,
yeah.
they can't say. I said, no, just do it. Because I like them, in theater, it's also about expression, like moving your facial muscles or, moving your body, using
Yeah,
your whole body. If not, you get
yeah.
stiff. You don't know what to do with your hands. You don't know what to do with your face. You don't know where to look. You have to lose that inhibition. So I always do auditions where I help them to try to help them lose their inhibitions.
Yeah.
And even if that person can't make it, I have a rule for myself. I will never let that person go away thinking that they can't do it. I'll never allow them to lose their confidence. So I'll always tell them that, try harder, work harder at it. One day maybe, you'll be able to do it. Because you should never tell a person like, hey, you're shit, get out, or you can't do it, or dismiss them or, because you should never break their confidence because you never know, right? One day maybe it's not time yet. Maybe they need more, a different learning process, or maybe for them to know that they can do something else, right? Yeah, better.
Yep.
So in the first audition, you would ask the actor or actress to sing and dance.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
tell me secrets.
Nice.
Tell me a secret,
Right,
because
right.
I believe that actors must have secrets when they act. They must not reveal everything. They must always keep some things as a character, even characters, because in real life we don't really tell each other the truth.
Hmm.
Right. So after they sing or dance or tell you a secret, then they would play out the scene.
Yeah, I mean it depends on the process, right?
Yeah.
So like the thing about sharing something personal or sharing their lives or sharing something, that it depends on the work, on the
Yeah.
script.
Yeah.
It depends. If it's something that I need more physicality, then I would approach the audition differently. It's really based on what I'm looking out for
Sure.
in the actor while casting for the role. It depends on the role. If it's a comic role or if it's an emotional role, I must know whether the person can hit a certain range. And sometimes it's your voice. If the voice doesn't suit the character, it's also hard. Or whether they can find a way to change that, or change the quality of their voice by working on it. Sometimes they can. Sometimes they can even change whether they're flexible in the way they speak, because you may need to pick up accents. So you have to determine all these things in different ways. Yeah.
Yeah. A bit of a tangent to Yellowbird. Like recently, I watched Drive My Car, this short film you did for CPF.
Yeah.
I really like the performance of like Ching Shuyi.
Yeah.
So, yeah, can you just share with us how did you audition her and eventually picked her for a role?
Actually, I saw her in a play called Doubt.
It's
And
the John Patrick
the,
Shanley,
yeah,
the
that's right.
Irish one, right?
That's right.
The
The
Catholic
one that
one.
Meryl Streep did, yeah.
Yep.
And she was one of the characters, and I went to watch the play, and I knew Swilin. So Swilin introduced me to her, and I said, you did a great job. And so when this role came out, actually I wanted to cast her in something else, but she was not free. And then when this role came out, she was available, and so we met up, and I knew she could do it, but you see, she had to work on her accent in Drive My Car to get that. So we worked on it, and she's very hardworking, and she's someone who doesn't give up. But I mean, emotionally, like we work together on finding that emotion, finding that nuance. I think she really works very hard to to find that, and I think that was a very good experience for me working with her. I mean,
Right.
she's a theater actress, and I think she's trained, and she's also done a lot of television and film and all that. So it was very good to work with her, because she had some experience as well. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
and
very giving. The acting's about giving.
Yeah.
You have to give. Yeah.
Right.
yeah, and going back to Yellowbird, how did you end up with Siva for the main character?
Siva, I worked with him 10 years before that. So I always knew he had an edge. He was always very natural, and I always loved his voice. Although in Yellowbird he hardly says anything, but
Yep.
yeah, but I always liked the way he performed. So I told there are two people that I mentioned, like to Michael and to Siva, that if I do a feature film, I want you to be part of it. That at that time I had no idea I was going to do a feature film. But I said, like, if I ever do a film, and I kept to my word,
Right.
And I know that because he gives, he trusts me, and and I trust him, and and he's a very instinctive, intuitive actor. He and his emotions are always very right. Yeah, and natural. He's a natural. Yeah, and he's able to take my like temper or my scoldings, or he's able to take it. He understands my frustrations.
Yep. When after you get your actors already and before shoot, do you do a lot of rehearsals, or how's the process like?
It depends. Sometimes I don't like to rehearse because I feel that rehearsing sometimes doesn't work.
Yeah.
But sometimes if it is very technical and just to get the timing and it needs rehearsal, like when I do comedy, I rehearse. Because like working with Alaric and Pam and all, we rehearse, but the thing is, what happens at the rehearsals is very funny because they always improvise, and then you get a better script. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So because they are funny themselves and they're really good at it, so they bring your script to life, like because I collaborate a lot with Kaylene Tan as well.
Yeah.
A lot of my short films, a lot of work that I do with Kaylene Tan.
Yeah.
She's a Singapore writer, lives in Australia, but so all these things are very good. I mean, the collaboration between the writer, the actor, and the director is something like I like that synergy.
Yeah. What about your pre-production? Do you storyboard, or do you prefer to just stitch the actors up?
I only storyboard if it's a commercial.
Okay.
But for short films and all, I don't storyboard. But I do talk to the actors. I do meet the actors because you need to. They can't come on set to start working on a character. So we need to talk about it. We need to, create a dialogue with the actors, with the writer, because sometimes I'm not the writer. So I also collaborate with the writer to bring life to the films, right? So that's a process. I mean, I definitely need to be. It may not be full-fledged rehearsals to make everything perfect, because I think you need to give it room for it to breathe on set. Because sometimes things happen on set, which is quite nice, and you keep it. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
You work a lot with Kaylene, who you mentioned. How's that writer-director relationship like? Do you give her feedback after each draft, or how does it go?
Yeah. No, we start with script. We start telling each other stories, right? So we get a theme or a story or a project, right? So we'll add on to it, right? And then we sit on it, and then we see, and then she will put it into words, and then she might do some research on the topic. And then she comes back to me, she shares it with me. Or if I find something related to the topic, I share it with her. We have a group chat. That's how we did Deep End with Chris, the one that your dad acted in, right?
Yes.
So there was this collaboration, right? So so we work a lot with, we have our own writers' room, and then we also, because those kind of projects, you also have the Koreans and the Hong Kong side, from CJ, looking into it and talking to us through the script and characters and all that. So it's a whole process. Now there's a lot more writers' room, that's coming up. Before, you tend to do it on your own and just present drafts and scripts. But now a lot of it is like done through writers' room. So the whole process is you're not just working with your own collaborators or writers, you're working with the executive producers or the commissioning editors, to create the work. Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah. So, and then when she writes it out, of course, yeah, definitely I comment on it. We have arguments, we have disagreements. Sometimes I enjoy what she's written. I praise her for it. Because, you have to appreciate each other, It can't always be about the negatives.
Yeah, I'm just curious, going back to working with actors. I remember a few years ago, you will hear rumors like from people who are on your set that you're a very fierce director. You would scold your actors. And
Yeah.
just now you mentioned some of it already. I'm just curious, what prompted you to change your approach? Was there some particular episode or incident?
I did a lot of kids shows as well, children shows, and sometimes if they're not scared of you, the whole set will be chaotic, So you need to be a bit of a discipline master, You need to tell them, kids, like that. They must know who's in charge.
For you,
Fears,
what
yes.
yes. I'm curious for you, what is good film performance?
I think it depends on what is required. Like, like I like the way, like Nuri Salon, the Turkish director, the way he works with his actors, or the way that his actors perform, the subtlety of it, not where it is all like forced or planned or, exaggerated. But it also depends on the story, on the film and all that. But I mean, intense, I tend to lean towards very intense performances and all that. It's not about, somebody has to cry in order to be a good actor or tear, but, to find the right emotions or the right balance, like that, the Portrait of a Lady on Fire, that kind of performance that that I like, I also like that performance, like in Dardenne Brothers, the way he gets his actors to work. He has an approach which actually I relate a lot to, or like Mike Lee's kind of Naked is one of my favorite films.
Yep.
Those kind of very realistic, raw films where the actors used to the extreme. Yeah.
How about performances that you see, like, let's say, for example, in a Spielberg film, right, which is much more beat after beat after beat. It's more performative. Do you like that kind of performances? But they are still good in their own way.
I mean, it's probably good in their own way and all that, but like if I want to take like like, can you just say E.T., for example? The kids were endearing you can't, the charm of it, when it first came out, I was a kid myself. I was a teenager myself, so you enjoy it at that level, right?
Yeah.
But if you look at Saving Private Ryan or Schindler's List, if you're taking a Spielberg film, Liam Neeson and Matt Damon, right? Saving Private Ryan, the performance, does have a certain quality to it, which suits them. I wouldn't say that, I dislike. I mean, because I like Wes Anderson, where it's all about the visuals and the quirks, and I like Roy Anderson as well. I like the way his films are, the composition. So different genres, different styles of performances, maybe I find Almodovar a bit too much, a bit too big or exaggerated. But I like some of his films too,
Yep.
How about Song Kang-ho's type of performance?
It's okay. I mean, I would be what I would say that it depends lah. It depends for me with him. Yeah.
If an actor you work with comes up to you and asks for advice on how to improve his craft, what would you say to him or her?
Read. Read. Yeah.
Mm.
I think
What should he or she read?
read and observe. Read what literature, stories, characters. Yeah,
I was curious, right? When it comes to staging and blocking for scenes,
yeah.
do you let the actors find their positions first, or do you kind of have a plan? Okay, this is your first position, this is your last position. Here,
Uh,
you kind of do your business, that kind.
in the early days, I used
Mm.
to block because I was used to theater, but I changed that along the way. I realized that as I observed and grew up, I think, or matured, I allow the actors to use the space and then work with the camera. And I think this is something that Hide
Mm.
and I discussed as well. Like,
Mm.
allowing the actors to rehearse in the space and watching it, then placing the camera instead
Mm.
of fixing the camera and asking the actors to act in that frame.
Yep.
You know, and
Yeah.
I must say, like people like Hide, the people I work with, like Hide, uh, Shaun, Shyan Tan, Shaun Neo. I
Mm.
mean, the people who have done a lot of work with Leon, uh, Russell. I mean, who people have done like short films with, and Michael Zaw, the feature film, and a lot of short films like Timeless and all that. I mean, they all have different strengths, and I think, like, but what connects everybody, or those people that I worked with, is they're all very emotional beings.
Mm.
And like Shaun is really into reading scripts. Shine is like a poet, like he finds an emotion, and and Hide is about observation. Michael's about doing it. Like really, he no one pulls focus like him.
Mm.
You know, like fast, and he gets it. Because he's documentary trained. So
Mm.
he is able to observe quite fast. He's very alert. And sometimes like they plan very well as well.
Mm.
So the planning also helps, but most of the time it is taken from the emotions of the scene.
Yep.
Even for lighting, for that matter, it's more the emotions of the scene and what's required than
Yeah.
actually like getting the actor to block the actor, to move here, move there, and
Yep.
then it becomes very rigid. I feel that sometimes it doesn't work because the actor might face a corner or wall that you don't want. I
Yeah.
mean, then of course you tell them, hey, this doesn't look good. Can you
Mm.
try to? What do you think about, doing moving here instead? And a lot of times I do long takes, even for television. I've tried out like long takes, for a whole long one scene, just do it in one take. So
Mm.
it challenges the actor as well to find their blocking and to move the camera. So it challenges everyone, and then it keeps it exciting. So I
Mm.
think that's my way of working. I don't block too much. I let it, yeah. But sometimes you need certain visuals, certain frames which I like. Like I want that. Because you had seen it, because the DOP had taken a photograph of it, or
Yeah.
in their recce pictures, and then you realize, hey, this is shot is really good. Then I
Yeah.
would keep it. I won't
Right.
like forego it.
Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah.
I'll
Right.
try to fit it in.
Right.
Because if it tells a story, right?
Yep.
You keep
Yep.
it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe we
In
can.
fact,
Sorry. Go ahead. Yep.
I'm curious about your collaboration with Hide. I think for people who don't know, Hideho Urata, he's a Japanese photographer who shot A Land Imagine, and
Yes.
he taught me at film school.
Ah,
Uh, yeah, and I think one of my favorite short film of yours is The Flame, which I
right.
believe Hide shot.
Yeah, that
And
was my first time working with Hide, and he was so quiet on the set that I was so, uh, I was like so disorientated. I told Fran, said he's so quiet, I can't take it. But we forged a very good relationship, and I worked with him a few times after that. And I think it's something that he brings to the table. his experience, and life experience, and he's not an overt, like he doesn't talk too much about things and all that, but he always says, "Can I show you? Can I do this? So very humble, in his approach, and he always allows you to discuss things with him. He's never high-handed and says, "No, this is the way to do it." "Oh, no, this we have to do it this way." He doesn't. He'll always listen and then says, "Oh, okay, we can try it." And if it doesn't work, he says, "Oh, maybe not. Can we try it this way?" So the collaboration, it's very calm on his set. His set is very quiet and nice and peaceful. Yeah, and I love it. I enjoy it a lot. Yeah.
You work a lot with Shaun Neo recently as well.
Yeah. Because Shaun likes, he really gets into. He works with you in a very close manner. He reads the script, he gives his suggestion, he talks about characters. It's not just about he's interested in, I give you aesthetically beautiful visuals. He's not into that. He's into about telling a story. And like Drive My Car, for example, right? It needed that kind of grittiness, So, I mean, you could have been done with beautiful framing and all that, but we didn't want that. We didn't want to force that into the life of this person who was struggling, So those kind of things, the way, and so whenever I get like where I adapt a screenplay, a book, or I like to work with him because he's able to contribute a lot to it, to the text. Yeah,
nice.
Shyan is very poetic. His images are emotional. I always tell him that he emotes. He's the most emotional DOP I've ever worked with, because he picks it up very, very subtly. His camera work picks it up. And I've worked with him a lot on telefilms and short films. And apart from his aesthetic, he always gives you beautiful visuals. He also makes sure that it's emotional. Yeah. I mean, and also because I started working with Shaun and Shyan when they were very young. I mean, they were just in ADM and just out of school, and so we kind of grew up together. We grew, as I worked and they worked. So I think we have the trajectory. Our journeys are quite. There's so many experiences. Which shapes how we think and how we film. Yeah.
Right.
Or how we tell stories, how we narrate. Yeah.
And recently you've done a lot of web series.
Yes.
You did Come Closer quite recently.
Yeah.
And numerous others.
Yeah, because I mean, after Deep End, it was in Chinese, and then I did Come Closer, which was an adaptation of the play that I directed, Missing, which Kaylene wrote, and it was from a book. It was from a short story by. It was inspired by Sui San's short story, and then Kaylene wrote it as a play, one woman show. Then it was pitched as a series, and then we materialized last year, Come Closer. And so we brought in actors who are doing Channel 5 for the first time, English drama for the first time, Chu Yu and Jeanette Au, and Surya Velan from Tamil. He was doing a lot of Indian content, and he's pretty well known in the Indian side, the Indian community, and even internationally in India, he's quite well known. They were doing an English film for the first time, English series for the first time. And so it was very exciting what they brought to the table, what all of them, Shyan, suddenly she became my muse. I started casting her continuously a lot of my projects because I really like working with her. She's so intelligent.
Yeah.
She's like her parents. I think she got, the genes from her parents. But, because I know King and Yu Bing quite well because they were doing theater with me during that time, in the early days. But Shyan, her sensitivity and the way she works and the way she absorbs, it's just amazing. And I really enjoy working with her. So I started casting her a lot.
Yeah.
And she gives you the intensity, and she's so come closer, like Chiyu, like the way, the approach, although language, like certain things, but they're willing, like Jeanette and all, they're willing to work with you. And, we found different ways of working together. It wasn't very rigid. There was a lot of, they could try things out, which I liked, and I think they enjoyed as well, hopefully. I don't know, but yeah, I hope they enjoyed it. But I had a very good time doing the series, and I think I really felt that they all gave their best in the collaboration.
Right.
Yeah.
The series is set in the 80s, right? How and Singapore is like, so nothing ever stays.
The same.
How hard is it to actually?
Yeah, I know. I mean, because it
that?
was not a big budget show and all that.
Yeah.
So you see, that's something that I do. I try to contain.
Yeah.
I also work with producers, right? Because you don't want to burn their pockets unnecessarily. So we work. Because it's all in what you write, how do you figure it out? Like, look, instead of asking for 10 locations, you do less. Instead of asking for 20 characters, you do less. You can control it, and still tell a good story. That's what I believe in. You see, I mean, sometimes you have to work. Sometimes you have budgets, fine. If you don't have budgets, you try to work within that limitation, you see. But that doesn't mean you always do it. Sometimes if the opportunity rises, you do, there are expectations and demands, but you must be realistic. This is not Hollywood, so we have to be realistic about what we do as well.
Yeah.
So I think working in a series like that was satisfying because I felt the actors were good, the story, the screenplay, we worked very hard on it, and we managed to keep the era intact, the costume department as well. They all chipped in to make it happen. So I think Chuyu, it was my first time working with him. He was very, very obliging, and I think I really enjoyed his performance. Jeanette as well. I mean, they were very busy people, but they gave me time.
Yeah.
Did you rehearse with them?
Yes, we had rehearsals, but my rehearsals are actually filmed. I've rolled I wanted to see the chemistry, and although they had chemistry, right? Both of them were from Little Nyonya, and they worked a lot together. But because it was in English, we were trying to find the language, to make it as natural. So they spoke in Mandarin, which was realistic. At home, why would they speak in English, right? So we got them to speak in Mandarin throughout, and it was fine. The channel was fine with it as well. Yeah.
Right. I noticed in a lot of your series and even some of your narrative TVCs as well, you have a group of actors that you always cast, like Shane Majutki and
I love Shane Majutki.
Joe Tan. What do you see? What are some of the qualities that you like in them?
No, because they like, I think Joe, she molds herself. She has a certain style, and I think which I like. I like it because she's able to change it. She's able to transform. But you have to talk her through it, because I think she's very intelligent as well. So, so she understands, she grasps things very fast, and she's able to switch, and she's able to give. So I like that, especially when sometimes you're unsure, you want to try something out, it doesn't work, and then you want to switch gears, right? And the actor has to be with you. If sometimes the actor says, "Hey, what is this? You're confusing me," and all that. They don't do that kind of things, you see. They are there for you to explore, and they allow you to explore. So that's why I like these actors like Shane, he is the sweetest person, the most well-behaved. He doesn't disrupt you. He's very polite, in a nice way, sincere. So I like working with, because they give you that peace of mind, and they're good. It's not because of just that, and they're able, like, his role in Come Closer is so different from his role in say the one I did with Joe Tan, for which Under My Skin.
Under My Skin. Yeah.
Yeah, so they play different roles and they're able to do different things as well. They're very versatile. So I
Right.
like
Right.
them, yeah.
Right. Before we move out of directing for TV, do you feel there's any distinction between directing episodic series and a feature film?
Of course, there's a big difference.
Mm.
Because, like just take Deep End, for example. There were
Yep.
two directors, there's me and Chris. We were directing different episodes.
Yeah.
We have to, work together very closely. And we also have to find a style that, not, that makes it all very congruent,
Yeah.
If not, it can be very, difficult to watch, right? Because
Yeah.
if the
Yeah.
actors are doing different things on different scenes and which is not in line with their character, so we have to, there's a lot of conversation, different feature film. I mean, it's one story right through, whereas you don't have to think about cliffhangers. And I mean, I'm talking about independent films. I'm not talking about commercial films, right?
Yeah.
I mean, commercial films has a certain formula that you need, you need to bring it, you need to punctuate it with different things.
Yeah.
But in a series, it's again TV, and it's online. You need the cliffhangers, you need the twists and turns, and you need to keep the audience because they're watching it at home, right? And or online on their phone. Whereas a feature film, I mean, nowadays, yeah, people watch it online as well, but it's still, one full length. You're looking at it as a whole, you see. So that the approach is completely different, the
Yeah.
storytelling, yeah. So the way it's actually in the writing itself, that's where it starts.
Yeah.
You have to
Yep.
approach it differently right from the beginning.
Yep. Yeah.
It's not just in the directing.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. I always feel that writing for TV and writing for a feature is completely different. Yeah. That shapes in the form of it, how you stretch it as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just before I move on to the next section, I'm curious if you've ever received any response to your web series, like a public response.
Which one? Like, I mean,
Like
anyone.
anyone, yeah.
I think I got a lot of compliments, like for Sleep With Me. A lot of people wrote in very good comments. There were a lot of good comments for Come Closer as well. There were people who from the industry who wrote nice stuff on their. I mean, I'm not on social media, but these are things that people send me screenshots, and then they send me, hey, this person said this and that person. Even, so like Under My Skin, TikTok picked it up to promote it.
Nice.
So things like that I feel are compliments.
Yeah.
If somebody wants to advertise or market it for you, or things like that, like Sleep With Me was bought, because it was a production that actually I pitched it to MediaCorp, but then it didn't happen, and then Witsy picked it up, and then it was sold to MediaCorp, eventually, because I really, so you never know how it works.
Yeah. What I really like about Come Closer was the nice blend of languages. To me, I feel like that's how a Singapore TV series should be, rather than just like separate it into like channel 8, channel 5 or what. This one, it just kind of goes between Mandarin to Tamil to English, as and when it is. I thought that was really refreshing.
Like, I mean, I also work like Udaya, the girl who was the actress in Come Closer, is somebody I collaborate a lot with as well. So I mean, so these are actors that I worked in Vasantham, which I'm, who I like to work with, who I repeat in my films. So I'm very confident, for them to make the switch, to make the crossover as well. So, because they're comfortable in both languages and they bring a certain authenticity to things. So, I like that. I know, to create the texture, of our society, right? Because, we are multiracial. I mean, not to force it. I don't like to force it. Like, just because you want the CMIO, start putting mixed races and all. I'm against that.
Right.
I don't think you should force it. If it happens and you write characters that suits it. Like in this case, the chauffeur had, because there was something we are talking about thematically,
Yeah.
about the class difference
Yeah.
or the difference in racial tensions at that time.
Are you working on your second feature film?
Yes. Yeah, I am.
Nice.
Yeah, I am. But
When do you think you'll shoot it?
I wouldn't. I mean, I wouldn't want to say anything now. But I think because I like the idea that I mean, maybe it's an excuse. I don't know, but it takes time. Like to really come out with something again. It's not like something that you can just churn out. You see, so I want to be. I want to enjoy it. Basically, the process. Yeah. So hopefully soon. Hopefully soon. Depends on Fran's schedule as well. Yeah.
Yeah, in many interviews you mentioned you're a late bloomer.
Yeah.
What did you mean by that? Besides, like you started filmmaking by age 30, do you still feel
Yeah.
you're a late bloomer?
Yeah. I mean, I think so. Like, I mean, a lot of people I know started when they were much earlier, right? In their 20s, right? Or even when they're out of school. So as an adult, it's hard, it was a different time as well at that time. And that's why, as I mentioned, I think because I started late, right now my age is catching up, right? But I don't see it. I still feel very enthusiastic about making films and doing my job and working and still, very gung-ho about things and wanting to do more. So in that way, I don't feel that way anymore. That it's too late to do something. I don't. But I wish I had more time. You know what I mean? Would that have been different? But I don't know. Maybe we're all destined for different things, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, at that time it was because I was 30 when I started, and it was generally everyone was much younger. Yeah.
And
Understand.
what lessons have you learned through your years of struggle and experience?
I only have one lesson that I always keep in mind is to persevere. I think don't give up. I never give up. I think I come across very difficult times. I come across moments when I feel like, hey, I can't do this, or some doubt, comes up. But I never give up. I always believe that, okay, when things get too much, I just, tell myself, take it one day at a time. Every problem can be solved. I don't want to get philosophical about this, but it's what I tell myself. I mean, sometimes I feel like I'm at the edge of at the edge of things, but but I think I am very much have the fighting spirit. Yeah, I still want to do things.
Right.
I still
Right.
feel
Right.
I'm 18.
Yeah. And speaking of that, right? Because I teach in like polytechnics, and I deal with students that are the current Gen Z,
Yeah.
17, 18, 19. If right now there's a 18-year-old aspiring filmmaker, right, coming to you and asking you what he should do, to be a filmmaker right now in his generation with AI and all this coming up, what would be your advice to him?
I mean, do what he wants to do, right? Because a lot of people have like mentioned like, oh, they want to like one like to AD for me or want to follow me on sets and all. But what I tell them is eventually you have to create your own work, your own style. I think that's what you should focus on, If your strength could be something that I may not be familiar with or I may not relate to, or a genre that I may not relate to. So you have to find out. I mean, I think we can talk about film, we can talk about cinema, we can talk about what you like and what you dislike. But I think I wouldn't. My only advice is do what you really want to do, and continue doing that, and find out for yourself where you're heading or where you want to go. Because maybe it's because I learned it the hard way. I didn't have anybody to tell me except, I mean, my teachers were films, The films I watched were my teachers, and the people that I worked with, like Lucas, Lucas and Mary from ADM.
Yes,
I made I made my they did my films for me, my short films
right.
in the early days, and they taught me how to place lights. They drew it
Yes.
out for me, like a scene, and they would draw. Okay, this is how. I didn't know how to light, like how a light comes and why you place it, and nothing, zero, right? And they used to sit down at night and map it all out for me, and for me to understand how a track works, right? Track and why, and then because I was looking at it from a very raw perspective, but there's so many things to film, right? So I learned it that way. So it's all through they were all my teachers,
Yep.
Yeah. So I would tell them that experience, and by doing you learn, right? And you experience and you find out. You have to. Sometimes you may not do the right thing, or you may make mistakes, but you have no choice. I don't think we can reach. I don't know. I don't believe in perfection anyway.
Right.
Yeah. I
think
like
that's
it. I like things imperfect. I like everything to be slightly imperfect, which is nice.
nice.
Yeah.
So with that, we are heading into our final segment of the podcast, which is a quick fire round, which we just ask a simple question, and you just give your answer. So okay, maybe I'll kick off the first one, and then subsequently, Seping, you can take the next one, and I'll take the next one. The first one is, what is your favorite Singapore film?
I think the first Singapore film that I saw was 12 Stories.
Yep.
And then later on, I went to watch Mee Pok Man. So I would say that would be my favorite, because it did inspire me to think about filmmaking. Later on, during that time, that period. But I also must mention Royston's 4:30, which is one of my favorite films. I also like what's that? Actually, what was that film? Oh, okay, never mind. I have a blank here. Yeah. Okay.
No
Yeah.
problem.
These were the films. Yeah. I did like Apprentice, Land, Imagine, and all that, but they came much later.
Sure.
But I think early days, like before I had made my feature film, I think I remember watching these earlier films. Yeah, feature films. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
What's your favorite Asian film?
I would say The Rat Trap still, which is very much something that which inspired me. So The Rat Trap, yeah, by Adur. Yeah.
Yep. Where do you watch that film?
It was on, the VHS.
Okay.
Last time they had these VHS tapes.
Yeah. Nice.
But I also, he won the British Institute Award. At the ICA. He had a retrospective there. So when I was in London, I went to watch that as well. So I watched it again. Yeah.
Cool.
I'm curious. Have you ever met Ador again?
No. I had the opportunity to, but I couldn't go meet him. He came here for some event, but I didn't meet him after that. Yeah. Yeah. But I met people who knew him, and they said they'll send my regards, because after, like in Cannes, there was this journalist who knew him, and she said that she would send my regards to him. Yeah.
Okay. What is your dream book to adapt, or dream novel?
Easy, God of Small Things. By Arundhati Roy. Because I went as far as calling the Fran thought I was crazy, calling the publisher,
Right.
but it didn't work out. She didn't want to make it into a film. I don't think she's given the rights to it. I don't even know. I don't think so.
Okay. Cool.
Who's a dream actor that you want to work with, and why?
Dream actor. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Anyone?
Javier Bardem.
Oh, nice.
Oh,
nice.
okay.
Right.
Have you watched Dune?
No, not yet. I've not
Oh,
watched. Yeah.
he's so
Yeah.
good. He's hilarious in
Yeah,
that film.
yeah. I like Javier, but
Nice. Yeah. Okay. Favorite
because
Singapore.
I
Yeah,
love the
sorry.
film Beautiful.
Oh
Ah,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's a very,
Alejandro
Yeah,
Inarritu's
so
film.
it's
Yeah.
film. Yeah,
yeah. That was a really good performance by him.
because when I was working on Yellowbird, it's a film that I liked. The character, the way the things that was happening to him, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Nice. Okay. What's your favorite Singapore dish?
I'm very bad with food. You give me chicken rice every day, I would eat it.
Okay.
I'm not a connoisseur. And I'm not like, you put food in front of me and tell me, okay, this is it, I'll eat it.
Okay.
I'm not fussy, and I can be very, I'm a creature of habit. So I can eat the same thing a lot. So I don't know,
Nice.
whether it's chicken rice,
Yeah.
chapatis,
Yeah.
biryanis,
Yeah.
whatever.
Actually, I think
Where do you?
directors are like that.
Yeah.
Is it?
Because on set we really can't think about eating.
I'm not fussy about my diet. They always ask me any dietary restriction. I always say no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where do you find the best biryani in Singapore?
I don't know actually.
Siping, I think probably you will know it better.
Yeah, I really don't know.
Right.
Yeah, my mom was a good cook before, so I used to like a lot of what she cooked. So
Right.
I would say my mom's biryani.
Okay.
Best answer.
Yep.
But yeah, I've not had it for a long time because she's gone. But yeah. Anyway.
Cool. All right, Siping, next one.
Who's your favorite film director?
I would say I like the Dardenne brothers a lot. But I also like the Coen brothers.
Oh, okay.
Some of their films.
Yep.
I like some of their films that they've done. But I mean, there are so many of them. They're really a whole. But what comes to my mind and the films that I watch, like Lorna's Silence, the kind of films that they made. Like I also like Haneke. I like Bellata, from the older filmmakers.
Yep.
So there are quite a number of
Maybe
them.
to phrase it another way, which film director has taught you the most?
I think my early inspiration was like adore Mike Lee. Mike Lee's films,
Yeah.
Because of the way he works with actors?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mike Lee is really quite something.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I remember watching Naked in London for the first time, and in the 90s, people walked out shouting and screaming, and because it was the scene where he hits her head against the bed frame, and people, I mean, understandably, but they were so appalled by the violence that they
Yeah.
walked out on it. But the character was just.
Mike Lee has this film called Life is Sweet. I don't know if you've
Yes,
seen it.
I've seen it. Yes,
I
Secret
really
and
like that.
Lies, Life
Yeah.
is Sweet. Yeah, it's very good.
Okay. Your favorite stage play?
Favorite stage play. I think I would say Exiles, which I acted in,
Okay.
which King Sen directed, and I acted with Ketong because I think it was a dream. Because when I first went to theatre here in Singapore, I saw KSU and Ketong act together in a play, and I said, "Oh, I want to be on stage with them," and it finally happened. I acted with both KSU and Ketong.
Yeah.
So it was like a dream come true for me. So I would say that's my best. No, but I had a very good part in it.
Right. And how was the experience like working with both of them?
Oh, they're very, very, very nice. I mean, because in theater you rehearse, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of times, a lot of interaction. So you get to know each other at a certain level. Not that I know them very well. I mean, KSU's a friend. Ketong, I know him because I even directed him in a TVC. So he was, he's very
yes.
giving. Yeah.
The Singtel reunion.
Mr.
Reunion.
Lim's reunion dinner. Yeah. So he's very, very professional and very nice.
Yeah.
He allows, even when you're he understands and he works with you very well. He never, no diva attitude, nothing.
Yep.
Nothing at all.
Yeah.
Very very much wanting to collaborate.
Yeah.
Is Exiles the play by James Joyce?
No, Exiles is by Simon Tay.
What's the story?
It's about two friends. One is a lawyer, and the other friend, the guy, is a political activist, and he's exiled. And one remains back in the country, and they're separate. Then it's a conversation between the two of them,
Right.
about their friendship. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And Simon Tay wrote. Is it the same Simon Tay that wrote City of Small Blessings?
Yes.
Okay.
And actually, Exiles is from Standalone, the series of short stories. So there are a series of short stories there which were made into films, short films. Like I did one for a telefilm called Sita's Complaint, which is from that series. I made it into a telefilm. I changed the title to Anita's Complaint. Yeah. So.
Okay.
Next question. What's the most recent good film you've seen?
I would say Inside the Yellow Cocoon Shell.
Yeah, that's one of our favorite films of last year as well.
Yeah. I like The Oasis of Now as well, which is a new film by a Malaysian director. I like that film as well. Yeah. Recent ones, yeah.
What's a film you like that people wouldn't expect you to like? What's a guilty pleasure film?
I don't. Wait, let me see. What did I like? I mean, I don't know. I really don't know. What would it be? What did I like that? I mean, no, but then these are things that people would have watched and liked.
Do you like rom-coms?
No, I've not seen. What have I seen? I can't remember. Because I'm a very like like the kind. Okay, I tell you the kind of films I watch now is like, the kind of film Anticipate Films bring in, like Vincent. Then he sends me, he say, those very exclusive films that you don't get to watch all the time. I go to the projector and I watch and I come back.
Right.
I hardly watch. I went to watch Oppenheimer and all that. No, I did watch it. What else did I watch? That was the last film that I watched. I think I didn't go and watch Barbie. So I don't know. I've not because of anything, but I didn't get. I didn't go intentionally thinking that it'll come on Netflix or something.
Do you like Oppenheimer?
Yeah. I did. I did like it. Yes.
Do you like Nolan in general?
Some of it. Yeah.
What's your favorite Nolan film?
Inception.
Oh, nice.
That's a great film.
I like Inception. Yeah.
Yeah.
I also like Tom Hardy as an actor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. The last question, which I think you kind of answered it a little bit just now, which is, if you were 20 years old again, what would you have done differently?
I think I would have not stopped, not given myself a break. I would have given up my day job and would have just remained like focused solely on filmmaking,
right,
or the arts, like not be a full-time artist. I think that's something that I would have done. Yeah.
Wow.
What do you think you would have required in order to have that mindset back then?
Guts.
Yeah.
Courage. Yeah, I didn't have that courage to do it. Yeah, that's why it didn't. A lot of things, took time. But I think, if I was 20 something now, and I would have been, maybe I would have had more guts to do it. Yeah, because the world has changed, right? Yeah. There's no pressure anyway from parents or anybody now. I can do it. Can do anything I want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's
I
about
Thank
it.
you, Raja.
That's
Thank you
it.
so much,
Okay.
Raja.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks a
Let
lot. It was
me
fun.
let me do a conclusion.
Yeah.
Yeah. With that, we've come to the end of this episode. Thank you, Raja, for taking the time to chat with us.
Thank you. Thank you,
Yeah.
both of you. It was
Yeah.
fun.
All the best.
Yeah.
All the best to your
Yeah.
second film.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you
we'll
so
meet
much.
again.